Hi, hello, and if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Now, this is the second video about the problems I've been having with my Narrowboat engine, which you can see just behind me. Now, if you watched any of my earlier videos, you'll know that over the summer I had some problems with the engine, in that after 90 minutes, 2 hours of running, I would start getting this low revs, low oil pressure problem and the engine cutting out as I changed gears. I then decided to have the engine serviced in sort of end of summer, beginning of autumn, and we couldn't get the thing started. It just would not start. And that's what I looked at in the last video. And I've received a ton of really great help and advice, suggestions of things to look at and things that I could try. Now, I still don't have a fix at this stage, because I haven't tried some of those things. I've got the mechanic coming along shortly and he's going to sort of do the mechanic-y sort of things that he can do. But in the meantime, I'm going to check out a few of the things that have been suggested in the comments that I received on the last video. I will be having a look again at the breather tubes for the fuel tanks, but I don't think that's the problem. I don't think they're blocked. I checked them earlier in the summer and that wasn't an issue. I found that when I sort of experienced the engine running problem, if I cracked the fuel tanks, it didn't fix that problem. I didn't hear any obvious hissing, but I'll go and have another look at them anyway. I received a suggestion that it may be something to do with the sensor on the flywheel. I don't know if I've got one of those fitted, so I'm going to go and have a look for that. I'm also going to be looking for diesel leaks on the non-started engine, to see if I can sort of see any places where diesel may in fact be leaking out, so air could be getting in and that could be causing a problem with getting the pressure in the fuel so that it sprays into the cylinders. So I'm going to look at that. And another suggestion that I've sort of received and I've sort of read up a bit about on is that it could be something to do with the battery load, in that when I sort of start the engine, we get the click of the solenoid, which is to be expected, but then when we get to the starter motor starting, that the voltage on the battery drops, although there's no evidence of that. The starter motor sounds fine and I'd expect that to be really making a noise if there was a problem, you know, sort of the old sort of noise. And it could be that the voltage drops and that's causing the solenoid to close. So I'll be having a look at the load on the battery. Another suggestion that I received is maybe the plunger is stuck, and that's something for the engineer to look at because the pump's got to be taken apart to gain access to the plunger on the solenoid. So as I say, I'm going to be looking at a few of these to see if I can actually identify something at this stage. I'm going to check all the wiring again to see if there's any obvious cracks. I'm going to check the voltage supply at the solenoid to see if that's okay, and basically just see if there's anything obvious on the engine that could in fact be causing this problem. So hopefully by the end of this video we've got at least the starting problem fixed. You'll have to just watch the rest of it to find out. Okay, so the Grey Wagtail's got two diesel tanks. One you can just sort of see here, and the breather for it is just over here. And I've had a good look at that and it doesn't seem to be a problem. I don't think that's the issue. Plus the fact this particular tank primarily feeds the heating system. So from that point of view, I don't think it's got anything to do with the problems I've been experiencing with the engine. The second fuel tank is on the side here, and the breather tube is just over here on the roof. And again, I've checked that and there's nothing obvious with it. It doesn't appear to be blocked. There's nothing I can see that could be causing a problem. And as I said, having cruised the boat and then getting the problem and cracking the fuel tanks open doesn't fix the problem. So if it was the breather tubes and a vacuum was building up in the fuel tanks, then cracking the fuel tanks open, I may not hear a hiss of air going in, but it should relieve the vacuum that's built up, and therefore the engine should start running normally again. And that's not the case. That doesn't happen. To do the battery load test and to check whether or not there was a voltage across the solenoid, I needed to start the engine, or at least attempt to start the engine. And so before I did that, I decided to clean all the diesel pipes on the engine, because I could then check to see whether or not any diesel had leaked out of them during the startup process. So I slowly went around the engine, checking all the joints and cleaning all the pipes. I also took this as an opportunity to check the wiring for cracks and loose connections, and I also checked the injection points. Once I checked the engine, I connected the voltmeter to the starter battery, and it was reading 13.45 volts, 46 volts, and that's good. What I then did was try to start the engine. Now, the voltage should drop, but if it drops into single figures, then that is a problem. Sorry about the shaky camera work there, but as you saw, it only dropped down to about 11 volts. So this suggests that the battery isn't a problem, that it's providing the right voltage. With the ignition in the on position, I next checked to see whether or not there was a voltage across the stop solenoid, and there was. There was about 11.7, 11.8 volts across it. So the stop solenoid was connected. It's got a voltage across it, so that's not the problem. Having attempted a start of the engine, I then went back over it looking for potential diesel leaks. I basically retraced all the diesel piping, checked all the joints to see whether or not there was any sign of diesel having leaked out during the attempted start. And I found nothing. Everything was dry and clean. There was nothing on the tissue. I then checked under the engine for any signs of leaked diesel or oil or coolant, and apart from a surprising number of dead spiders and a lot of cobwebs, I found nothing. There was no obvious signs of any fluids having leaked down into the bilge of my boat. Okay, so that's a range of tests I've carried out. I've checked the battery. That seems to be operating okay under load. It's sitting at 13.4 volts when it's just sitting there, and when I try and start the boat it drops down to about 11.7, so that shouldn't be an issue. The stop solenoid has got about 11 point something volts across it. Now admittedly I haven't been able to check that when I'm starting the boat because I can't be in two places at once, but I will check that when the mechanics here will run the startup again, and I'll just put the voltmeter on it to make sure it's still getting a voltage across it. It could be that there's a wire that's breaking and flexing when we start the engine, so that all looks fine. I've checked all the fuel lines, they look okay. I checked them before I started the engine, they were clean and dry. I checked them afterwards, they were clean and dry. So I don't think there's any sort of fuel coming out. Admittedly air could be going in, but I would still think that there would be fuel coming out once the engine has been run, for example, sort of leaking out, so it's not that. I've looked underneath the engine, nothing obvious under there. And in my exploration, I did find out two really useful things. I spotted the engine serial number plaque. I don't know how I missed that one, but I finally spotted it, so I now know that it's a John Deere, I think 3029 F something or other. Anyway, it's on the screen now, you can see it there. So I now know for sure what type of engine this was. I knew it was a John Deere, I knew it was I think a 3029. I didn't know if it was the F120 or the F150 variant. I now know it's the F150. And I actually found the plaque on the fuel injector pump. I couldn't find that. It's right underneath. I've tried to get a shot of it, you can see it here. But from that I've confirmed that the pump is a Stanadyne DB4, which has been really, really helpful. It means I can track down, and I have tracked down the specific manuals for that pump now. So anyway, next thing is the mechanic visiting, and hopefully we're going to get it running. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so the mechanic's been along. We've run a few more tests. We tried starting the engine again with some more spray. No joy there. We took the fuel feed off the bottom of the pump and confirmed that fuel is getting to the bottom of the pump. We also took a bleed valve off the top of the pump and confirmed that there's fuel getting into the top of the pump. We know from the injectors the other day that fuel isn't getting to the injectors, so that really is pointing to this stop solenoid in the Stanadyne DB4 pump. We also checked to see whether or not the solenoid was getting power. That basically confirmed what I found the other day. Yes, there's voltage going across it, and we even tried voltage across it when the engine was turning over, and that was all fine. So that doesn't seem to be the problem, and you can feel the solenoid clicking. So everything is pointing towards a sort of stuck plunger or some problem with the solenoid in there. So what next? Well, replacement solenoid, replacement pump. You're looking at a lot of money for a replacement pump on this. Replacement solenoid is cheaper, quite a bit of manual sort of labour charges there. So we'll just have to see. Mechanic's now gone off to speak to some people up in Coventry area, I believe, about what's the next step, you know, what's the best thing to do. So anyway, that's the story with the engine so far. If we ever get it started again, I'll certainly let you know. Anyway, thanks for watching for this long. If you've enjoyed this, found it interesting, amusing or whatever, don't forget to give it a big like, a big thumbs up, or even click that hype button. Some people clicked it on one of my last videos and it did seem to make a difference, so please consider clicking the hype button. Again, thanks for watching for this long. On the screen now you will see a QR code that will take you through to the free Grey Wagtail newsletter. You can either scan the QR code on the screen or you can click the link that's in the description. Again, thanks for watching for this long. Bye for now.